All right, hello everybody. Welcome to your very favorite Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike Gall, and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spidey comics from October of 1985.
That's right, and unfortunately, G.I. Jolie could not be with us today, but Bex Luthor is with us, as usual. Thanks for joining us, Bex.
Hey, you're not recording the call, and you turned your camera back on. Just want to let you know that.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Hold on a second.
Instead of recording the call, you just put your camera back on.
No, but I am recording. It says I'm recording.
You?
Yeah, it's at 2:13, T14 right now.
Okay, because usually it'll say in like the Skype chat, it'll be like, call recorded.
Oh, okay. So I'll cut. Do you want me to cut that part out?
No,
that's fine. Leave it in.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know. It's just, hello, it's me. Hi.
You gotta do your tagline. It's your boy Bex Luthor. But anyway.
Oh yeah, I guess I kept saying it too many times, and now it's a thing, isn't it? Crap. I need a new catchphrase. Okay, anyway. Spider friends, go for it.
Woo! Okay. Oh. Now I have it, Becca. Now I can use it. I can use it for every episode. Okay. Anyway.
No.
We also have a very
so much editing work for you, but sure.
We have a very special guest with us this week, Murad. Welcome back, Murad.
Hey, thanks for having me back with the Comic Syndicate in this new form. Spider-Cast.
That's right. I mean, now we've had you on our show a few times. The last time was Avengers Endgame. I can never pronounce your last name correctly. Can you tell us one more time how to pronounce it?
It's Erzinchlioglu.
Erzinchlioglu. Okay, there you go.
You're pretty close.
Pretty close?
You were close.
Okay, I missed a couple letters probably.
Immediately pronounced it wrong.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Like, even if it's a simple name like Nicole, I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable somehow. But anyway. Okay,
let's not worry about it.
Okay, so this week we got 4 Spidey books. Becca was already complaining about them before we started recording, so it's going to be a good week. Woo! All right. So we're going to start off this episode by the first comic book depiction of Prince. But actually, it's not Prince. It's just a guy who looks exactly like Prince. Because this was 1985, as Murad knows, right? Because you did do some research, right, Murad? Into the 80s?
Yeah, I was born in 1984, so I was very young when this comic came out, and I figured that I would try to put myself in the mindset of somebody who was reading it when it came out. So sure. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, like year in review, like cultural, news, sports, just everything that kind of happened in 1984 and 1985, just to like kind of know what was going on. And yeah, I got like a bit of a thriller vibe from the jacket, at least.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like Prince and MJ mixed together.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. Becca, did you get that vibe at all?
No. I was like, wow, that's a dude. Sure is a dude.
Are you familiar with Michael Jackson and Prince?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
familiar as in heard of them before.
Well, okay, that's fair. Because, I mean, obviously I grew up with them, but even when I saw this comic, I didn't necessarily think Prince or Michael Jackson. I kind of just thought 80s dude. You know, like when I was growing up, It wasn't until years later that people always referred to this guy as like a Prince wannabe. But maybe it was just kind of like the style of the day. Who knows? But, you know, it's funny, Murad, you mentioned like, you know, like what people were into at the time or whatever, what things were like at the time. And I can tell you, Spider-Man comics were pretty much the second coming of Christ, to me at least, and to my friends.
How old were you in 1985?
9.
Okay.
So I was reading Spider-Man at this time, but only sporadically, so I did not get this issue until maybe a few years later, like 4 or 5 years later, I finally would have read this. But anyway, so this is written by, we've talked about Peter David before. Murad, are you familiar with Peter David?
Not particularly. Like, all this old stuff, I never really read.
Okay.
I've never touched on any of these books. Like,
really?
I've never read any of these or any of the plot lines surrounding them.
Have you read any 80s comics at all?
Jeez. When did the Watchman come out? Was that in the 80s?
Yeah, like 86, but that was like groundbreaking, so nothing else was really like that at the time.
Yeah, I am trying to think of stuff that came out in the 80s. Like, there are some, I'm really into independent comic books. And like kind of always have been. And when I really started getting into comic books, like maybe 20 years ago, yeah, it wouldn't have been stuff from the 80s. I guess maybe I was reading a bit of Marvel at the time, but I feel like I know more about the Marvel universe from trading cards and cartoons and movies than I know from actually reading all of them. And like maybe some more like collected grand span overarching things, like something like Marvel's or Earth X that gives you the history,
right?
You know, without you actually having to go back and read a lot of those moments.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, this was early in Peter David's career. I mean, he's still around. I mean, he's most famous for, like, you know, Aquaman with the harpoon arm, and a long run on X Factor and Star Trek and blah blah blah. This was
okay.
Yeah, he also did the Grey Hulk. Like, he was the one that did the Smart Hulk, and then merged the Grey Hulk and the Green Hulk together into the Professor. Blah blah blah. That's all him. So this was early in his career. This is also the first, I believe, Spider-Man comic, the first comic by Mark Beachum. And at this time, his style was pretty different from everything else that was, you know, going on at Spider-Man at the time. So that's definitely something we can talk about later. But let's just jump into the story. Obviously, this is an annual, so it's double sized. But it starts out with a gangland murder that Spider-Man kind of comes across. And it's important. I hope everyone read them in the order that I sent them, because the first person that he comes across after the murder is Jean DeWolf. And then, you know, they're trying to find witnesses. No one wants to really cooperate. And then they spot this guy, this cool guy on a motorcycle who happens to be at the scene of the crime. So some people think he did it. Some people don't. He ends up getting away from Spider-Man and going home. So right away, we get a little bit of backstory with this guy. We find out that he lives with this is his brother, right? His little brother? Yes.
I think his sister, Rosie?
Yeah.
His sister, but his brother, yeah. His brother was one of the members in the gang.
That's right. His brother's in jail. Okay, so this is his sister. Yeah. His brother's in jail. And then his mother is kind of sick in bed. And basically, then we get a little bit of Peter Parker. Peter Parker ends up meeting a new supporting character who goes on to be in the rest of in Spider-Man for the next few years. Let's see if I can mispronounce her name. Joy. What is her last name? Mercado?
Yeah, that's her.
I believe so.
Yeah, Joy Mercado. Okay. So, so they go to try to find out what's going on here, and they get this, and we're getting pieces of this this character's backstory. Like, there's another guy who's, was in Vietnam and his legs got shot off, and basically they try to establish the fact that Ace is this guy who will not stick his nose out for anyone. He won't get involved in anything. He just keeps out of everything, and we find out later it's because his brother's in jail, and his brother is I believe he started this gang, right? The street gang.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ends up being that there's this court case, and no one can really get anywhere with it. And then Spidey and Joy end up being having this encounter with this gang. Ace sort of intervenes. Peter Parker has to sort of pretend that he doesn't have spider powers, pretends to get knocked out. Then he ends up turning into Spidey and chasing down what's his name, Ace. And then they have this pretty cool, I think, fight scene where something we don't really know what's going on, but somehow Ace is able to give Spider-Man a pretty fair fight. He's able to anticipate Spider-Man's moves before he can do them, which is very rare, because one of the things with Spider-Man is he's known to be pretty much faster than almost anyone, right? And so essentially Ace wins this fight, and Spider-Man ends up convincing him, to do the right thing or whatever. And so Ace ends up going to jail and talking to his brother, and it has this really kind of ambiguous ending where it's implied that Ace is going to take sides in this trial and is going to testify against the members of his brother's gang in order to implicate them. And that's pretty much how the story ends, and that's pretty much it. So it is a double-sized story. It's a little bit thin on plot. I do like what is there. I love this art, which we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a fairly good issue. I don't know, Josh, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, the story was pretty interesting, although a little bit flimsy at times. Like it... Mm-hmm. I think it was trying to be a lot deeper than it actually was. This like myth behind Ace having some sort of superpowers, but that never really coming to fruition. And by the end of the comic, was a little weird as well. And then this kind of like subplot of Ace knowing Peter's secret identity is also kind of weird and doesn't really end up going anywhere by the end of the comic. But I think all in all, it was pretty fun. I definitely enjoyed reading it.
Awesome. Bex Luthor, what do you think?
Yeah, well, aesthetically, it's absolutely beautiful. I'm a big fan of this art. The first like page, when it was like, oh, it was immediately one tally for the spider butt. Like, I was like, oh, I'm in for sure. Love Joy as a character. Also, Jean DeWolf is super great in this. I don't really care about the story though, unfortunately. I like the characters, but like the whole like, oh, these two guys shot these other guys and now everyone wants to know why. It's like, well, it's just gang nonsense, and that doesn't really draw me in. I was more interested in what was going on with everyone else besides Ace, because when you have a character and their primary trait is, ooh, they're mysterious, it's like, okay, well, I'm bored. I'm more like, okay, so who is he? Should I care? Because I don't.
Okay.
But I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, though. Like, they only told us that he was mysterious and cool. They never really showed him doing anything. And when something would come up, they would kind of just brush over it. Like his mom asking him, like, how's everything? Were you involved? And he says no. And then the reason why he lied was because he's like, the reason why she asks is because she knows she'll get the same answer every time. It's like, what? What does that mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Him having powers, but like not really knowing why or where. Like, I don't know. Yeah, they told us he was cool, and I don't think there was really a moment where I was like, whoa, this guy's cool.
Okay, I'll go ahead, Becca.
I was just gonna say, he looks cool. I will give him that. It's a good aesthetic.
That's true. He does ride a motorcycle.
But like, how many cute guys come up to you in a day and you're like, yeah, cool, but like, what do you like? And he's like, well, I'm a nice guy. It's like, yeah, but
do you like Doctor Who, right? Exactly. I hear you, Becca.
Exactly. It's exactly how it goes. Also, he killed a rat. 0, like, negative points for me. So rude. Poor Mousy.
Okay. We gotta let Murad get in here. Murad, what did you think? This is your first 80s Spidey book. What did you think?
I mean, there are parts of it that I liked. There are parts of it that I didn't like. Maybe I didn't feel like I knew the full context of. Like, Ace. Who is Ace? Is this the first appearance of Ace?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Because it reads like you should know who he is. Like, he showed up in a Punisher book, or he showed up in like a Daredevil book somewhere, and that like we know that he's got, you know, intuition abilities or heightened agility or something, because he basically like is amazing. Like, he goes toe to toe with Spider-Man. Like, yes. Spider-Man cannot hit him. Spider-Man does not actually beat him physically or even land one punch on him. Ace lands a punch on Spider-Man. Spider-Man lands 0 punches on Ace. Like, well, and guilts him into doing the right thing. He just kind of yells at him and says, like, you're shirking, you know, your responsibility. But like, who is Ace? Like, that's what, like, I feel like they spend a few pages doing things that could have been spent telling us who Ace is, how he got his powers, and then maybe like a moment of where a reasoning behind him not wanting to get involved. You know, maybe where like him getting involved is the reason why somebody lost their life and he just doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. Because he's essentially like Spider-Man. He's got like some sort of intuition or spidey sense of his own. Right. And he's able to like go toe to toe with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's kind of opposite in character, being like, I have to get involved, which is actually pretty poignant in the other comics that we're going to read. Like, that was a big part of one of the storylines. Like, I have to get involved. I don't, I can't shirk my responsibility. And Ace is a character who's like shirking his responsibility, but we don't understand why. And we don't understand why he's so awesome. Like, he's going toe to toe with Spider-Man, arguably one of the greatest superheroes of all time. And like, there's no explanation as to why. Like, he has superpowers.
Well, I'll have you guys know.
I can't believe this is his first appearance.
But
I googled him too. He has one more appearance after this, and then never shows up ever again.
Yes.
In the next annual.
Yes.
In the next annual.
Number 6.
I also had to look him up because I was like, who is Ace?
Yeah.
Like, I was so confident that I was like, this guy is a guy that you just never heard of and was big in the 80s and caused trouble for somebody, Daredevil or some other sort of street level heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very strange that they would set him up to have superpowers and then never do anything with it. Like, Spider-Man didn't need to fight him, right? So, like,
wow, no, but in the
for the story though, there's no reason. Like, Spider-Man just goes up to him and starts attacking him pretty much. To get information, and that definitely didn't need to happen, right? So like, it just seems pointless. Like, they only gave him these powers to be like, oh, well, he's got to fight Spider-Man, but he's got to live somehow. So I guess he'll just be able to dodge everything.
Well, I guess we'll find out when we do the next annual, right?
Yeah.
I already spoiled myself, so it won't be shocking. I wanted to know. I was like, oh, this guy must be like, maybe he gets a solo run. No, he's literally just in one more annual, and that's it. And nobody ever talks about him ever again.
So strange.
Well, he's one of those guys that Mark Waid's gonna have to bring back. But anyway, so let's just talk about the art briefly. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought this art was just, again, sent from heaven. Maybe the storytelling is not quite as effective as some of the others around this time, but geez, like, completely, like, the realism is incredible, the detail's incredible. I mean, I really like this art. I think, Josh, what was your take on the art?
It's great. I think that, like you were saying, the layout sometimes is a little strange. I don't quite know exactly where everybody is, especially during fight scenes. Like, it gets a little bit lost, and it's just like punches being thrown. But the art itself is just fantastic. I don't think that there is one panel where I was like, I don't know if that works. Every single one just looked fantastic. The rendering on the faces was great. Some of the dramatic panels are so good. Like, this last page, they've got like a Queen album cover, like with the light shining on the one side of the face, and like half of their face is in shadow, and it's like it's crazy the amount of detail that went into some of these panels. It's fantastic.
I agree. Murad, you like the art?
I like the way that it's laid out. Like, the panels are like boxed out in this really interesting way, where they have like this kind of greater connective panel beneath them. And they're all different sizes on a lot of different pages, and they're just like panels within panels. It's just like, I feel like it's not something that I see as commonly in books these days. Like, I'm looking at a page right now with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 panels, and none of them are the same shape or size.
Which digital page is that?
It's like right when he first starts. What does it say here?
Well, if you go up to the top,
page 32.
Okay.
Like, if you look at page 32, it is really wild the way that the panels are set up, and they kind of bring you in that Z motion in a way that, like, I just feel like I don't see a lot of books doing today.
Sure.
And like I love that. I love how it like brings you around the page. The page 31 is like that. You've got like almost like a splash page.
Right.
With like all these little shards of like all this other imagery. Like comics don't look like this anymore.
And Becky, you said you're a fan of the art, right?
Yeah, no, I want to add on that too, because it's using the medium of comic books to tell the story better than if you just wrote it down or drew it. It's like so integral to comic books to like you can only do that in this medium. So to make the most out of what you're doing, I love that. Like if you go, I think it's page 27 with like the big panel of the motorcycle going through the window, which is a little ridiculous, but it is cool. Like, and just the detailing on some of the characters, like there are so many people in this annual, like there's so many individuals, and whenever it's like a scene of like 4 or 5 people, it's not just like, oh, these are the gang members, they have different hairstyles. It's like, no, they're all genuinely different people. Like Ace looks different, his sister, you can tell that they're related, but like she's her own character, and Joy is very very much defined, very defined, if you know what I'm talking about. Same with Jean DeWolf, like that dress, girl, that is something. They speak like the butt tally in this issue is astronomical.
Yeah,
but
if there's a butt in this comic, it's good.
Yeah.
There's not one bad one. But sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's not just the butts that are over detailed; it's everything that's detailed, so it makes it okay. But yeah, even like I think it's page 16. There's like 3 different characters, and like we don't see them again besides Ace, but they all are very distinct. They look like their character design tells a little story about them. In a way that doesn't really happen a lot, especially with background characters that you're not going to see again, right? Right. People don't tend to spend that much time, but it gives the comic a sense of life that a lot of them don't have. I do like some of the details, though, like having the gang's building have the name printed on the side. Like, that's funny.
Yeah, hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. Bouncing off what you guys were talking about with the panels, too, I also love that the characters are actually popping out of the panels and leading into the next panels at times. Like
right.
Like you can follow the direction, and I think it's actually key because, like Murad was saying, there's so many panels on the page at once. It would normally be really hard to follow which direction you're supposed to go. But the flow of everything and how the panels themselves are laid out on the page, it's great. And yeah, again, the characters are like pointing in the direction that your eye is supposed to be following. So you're actually never lost. It's great.
So yeah, again, different than the average comic of 1985. One more question for you, Murad. How did this compare to what you expected an 80s Spider-Man comic to be?
I think I went in with kind of like zero expectation in the sense that, I mean, I just kind of checked myself, like as I was preparing to do this. I was like, you've never really read comics from that era. Here's another thing about how I've read comics over the last 20 years when I really got into it was that I've never not read anything from not number 1, basically. Like the idea of jumping into a comic like annual, that's why I was like, who's Ace? He must have a backstory. I must have missed something in a prior annual, or like I've never actually really read very many books at all where I just jumped in at issue 296. Like everything I've read, it's like from number 1 all the way to the beginning, or from the beginning to the end, you know? And so my expectations were like, what is this going to be like? But you know what? They do a really good job of just kind of like in a few simple speech bubbles, like if you had never read a Spider-Man, you knew nothing about Spider-Man, that it kind of like in the first few pages, and some are a little bit more apparent than others. They're like, they really just wanted to give you those handful of details about who Spider-Man is in the first couple pages, in case it was the first time you ever picked up Spider-Man. And there's a charm to that like I like that I don't really get from like books that I read now in the modern era, because generally they're all independent books. They're not tied into any sort of like larger history, and I'm reading them from the very first issue. So there was something really fun about just like kind of jumping into the middle of a story. And I mean, part of that made me wonder about all these other characters. I mean, who is this person? Like, making them seem important. And I was happy to see Jean DeWolf like show up, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but in other books. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is they all kind of tie together.
Well, that's what's for me, even like, starting to read comics around this time, Spider-Man would have been around. Amazing Spider-Man number 237 or something was my first issue. Superman or Action Comics would have been at number 583 or whatever. So it never even, I was just so used to that it didn't even cross my mind to have to start at number 1, because everything had already been around for 20, 30, 40 years, That's cool. That's interesting.
The first comic book I ever bought was Amazing Spider-Man number 346. And it's like Spider-Man in the eyes of Venom. Yeah, and I bought it as a 6-year-old kid or a 7-year-old kid because I thought it looked so cool. And that's what got me into comics, was just knowing what Spider-Man looked like and thinking Spider-Man was cool. And I mean, I treated that comic book more like a teddy bear than I did like an actual book as a child. I would carry it around with me and I'd like show it to people. Like, but I didn't really ever read it or like the issues before it or after it, but it's like what got me into comics. And so like, yeah, it's like, it was like a little like kind of nostalgic trip down memory lane, like just to like jump in to a Spider-Man story or a bunch of different Spider-Man stories without any sort of knowledge of kind of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So, okay, let's wrap up this review by recommendations. I absolutely recommend it. I don't think it's a great issue, but the story is something different. The art is excellent, so I recommend it. Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this. Just on the art alone, even if the story was awful, I think I'd still recommend somebody pick this up and skim through it. But really, the story's not bad, especially for an annual. I feel like the annuals are getting better and better. So I hope that this trend continues, because normally I dread the annuals.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, and I can only assume that's thanks to Jim Owsley, who's sort of, I think, raised the quality in all the books around this time. But anyway, Becca, what about you? Do you recommend it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Agree with Josh on that one, where it seems like the annuals, they're like, oh, maybe we could use these to get people to read all the other comics if they're good, instead of just subjugating whoever wants to write or draw them at the time to do that. Like this one, it seems like whoever drew it, I'm not familiar with the artist.
Mark,
but like, yeah, he loves Spider-Man, and like you could tell, like he really loves Spider-Man, and just having that passion behind it gives the art and the story a whole new meaning, I think. But yeah, I recommend it solely for Jean DeWolf's dress.
There you go. All right.
And nothing else.
Brad, is this your new teddy bear?
I don't think so. I could go either way. I would say that like I think it's a cool snapshot if you wanted to go like look back and see what, Spider-Man's story was like in 1985, but it just, I don't know, especially knowing what I do now about Ace and the fact that he doesn't have any greater backstory or anything going on with him, then it kind of cheapens the story for me. It doesn't carry so much weight. I wouldn't look at it as like, oh, this is the Spider-Man comic you gotta read. That's just my opinion.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so now we're gonna jump to Web of Spider-Man number 7, and Josh, you're gonna take this one.
Right. Okay, so the cover of this issue is like a big nasty drawing of Hulk, just like looking at the camera. It says the Incredible Hulk has just spotted Spider-Man. Cancel Christmas. It's wild. So like I pick up this comic and I'm thinking, okay, so it's gonna be Spidey and Hulk fighting. Hulk's probably gonna be rampaging, doing something. Spider-Man's got to stop him. We flip onto the first panel. This opening splash page. It doesn't say anything about anything. We just are pushed right into the story. Spider-Man is completely naked in the Daily Bugle. We have a cowboy in the background. Captain America's there. The Thing is handing Wolverine some tea. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Doc Ock's here. Green Goblin's flying around. Peter, still naked, walks into Robbie Robertson's office, and the Hulk crashes through the door. And we get the title that reads, "Welcome to My Nightmare." And I'm like, great. So this is going to be just the dream sequence comic. All right, let's do it. And honestly, if I go page by page and describe what's happening, it's going to be just as exciting as somebody telling you in detail what happened in their dream. So I'll just like quickly summarize and say every crazy thing that can happen in a dream happens here. This crazy gunman guns down everybody Peter has ever loved. The Hulk is like going crazy, chasing him around New York. They're running through the sewers, and Peter runs into Nightmare, who is this like goddess character. Like he's a
is it a supernatural?
Yeah. But he lives in the dream dimension.
Right. He's like the manifestation of nightmares, and he controls the nightmare dream dimension. And he's weak, and he's asking Spider-Man to help save him. So Spidey is like dragging this guy around as they're like destroying, and as Hulk and him are fighting, destroying New York City. And it turns out that Doctor Strange took away Nightmare's powers and trapped him into the dream dimension. And now that Hulk and Bruce Banner have been separated, Bruce Banner in the comics at this point, at least from what I'm getting from this comic, they've been separated, and Bruce Banner can no longer change to the Hulk. So the Hulk, who is kind of like an identity in and of itself, was pushed into the nightmare dimension and tasked by Doctor Strange to endlessly chase Nightmare around. So with the last little bit of magic that Nightmare has, he pulls Peter into the nightmare dimension while he's sleeping to help save him, because he knows that he's fought and won against the Hulk before. So again, it's kind of just this feverish nightmare of a comic as they're running around destroying things, and everything ends when they get to like the edge of the universe, or the edge of the nightmare realm, where there's nothingness, and they push Hulk into it and he disappears, which gives Nightmare back his powers. He pretty much says, haha, you're a sucker, you saved me, but guess what, you're still going to be trapped here forever, Spider-Man. And the Hulk reaches back into the nightmare dimension. You just see his arm kind of pop back in. He grabs Nightmare by the ankle and pulls him through. Peter wakes up in his bedroom, and he's surrounded by his landlady, the police, and Candy, Bambi, and Randy, and Tammy, as they're concerned because it sounded like somebody was getting murdered because Peter was screaming all night, and they thought something was wrong. So they busted in, and that's where we end this wild comic. It's ridiculous. It's so fun, but in a bad way.
Well, here's the thing. I had this okay, go ahead, Josh.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I had this as a kid, actually, And the cool thing about this issue that me and my brother loved, because actually my brother had it, was that Spider-Man's costume changes every panel, from his black costume to his red and blue costume. And just like Murad, we had the comic, but we didn't read it, so we didn't figure out why that was, happening. But I gotta say, it's clear that this issue is probably filler, because Peter David is not the regular writer on Web of Spider-Man. Danny Fingeroth is, so they probably said, okay, just fill 22 pages. But I gotta say, as far as dreams, dream stories are the sort of like the cheapest way to do a story, right? Like, it was all a dream. That's the cheapest twist ending. However, the fact that it started as a dream, but then ends up tying into a current storyline in another book, I think is pretty freaking smart. And the fact that you don't know that, like, until, 2/3 into the story, and if you were a Hulk reader, you could go, oh, of course, this is tying into what I'm reading in Hulk. I think that's pretty freaking cool. And just like you said, it is fun. I think it's fun in a good way. It's not a masterpiece. But,
right.
I mean, if you're going to do a fill-in, I'd rather see this than a lot of the stuff that we were seeing a few months ago from Marvel Team Up.
I think it's also not as as much of a cheap story as most other dream stories, because we know going into it that this is all a dream the whole time. Right. Like we're pushed into it saying Peter's trapped in a nightmare. So the goal is to escape this realm. So we know that everything going on is kind of nonsensical, and that's the point of the story. Right. So I think that it's easier to forgive it for being the dream story. Right.
Murad, what do you think? What's your impression of Web of Spider-Man number 7?
I mean, I like it for the reasons you liked it, that it tied into another active story that was going on. I like that we get the first few pages, and right where you're like, are they really doing a dream issue? He wakes up, and you're like, okay, finally, we're going to get into the issue. But by a couple panels later, you realize that, oh shit, he's still in the dream.
Yeah.
And then a few more pages go by, and you're like, seriously, they're committing to an entire dream issue. Yeah. Like, at the point where I was like, this is getting ridiculous, I saw Nightmare. And I was like, oh shit. Like, this is why he's not just waking up and going into being, Spider-Man and doing his, his daily thing. I thought it was clever, and I liked how it tied into something much larger that was going on. It's like, Doctor Strange took the unconscious mind of the Hulk and sent him on rampage mode through the nightmare dimension to keep one of his enemies busy. Like, so it's just like, kind of makes me like, what's going on in Doctor Strange right now? Like I kind of want to go like, what happened in the August issue in 1985 of Doctor Strange that sent Nightmare to this place? So you can see like a lot of things that people love about the movies, and that I love about the movies is that, in TV shows now, is that it's tying all this stuff together, that they've been doing that for, that's how they got you to buy more titles, more titles. It's like, put these little tidbits of other characters and stories in, just mix them in, even in the background, to like make you go, what's going on over there? And I'm hoping that it does actually tie over to, it wasn't just, he was just like, this isn't just complete filler, and that it does tie over. I didn't have the time to look it up and be like, what was going on in Doctor Strange at that point? But is that the storyline that he sets Hulk on
it must be. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, so it just leads you into it. I love how many people are in his apartment. Not only do the cops at the end when he actually wakes up, the whole building is there. Like, the cops have now opened the door and let all the passersby in. Like, everybody come in and look at this guy. Like, the whole building's there. I love it.
And like they're in his bedroom. Like they didn't just like walk into the apartment. Everyone's in his bedroom, and there's more people outside of his bedroom.
Yeah, they're like in the background, like piled around, like in his home.
You're right.
Nosy
people in the hallway. Yeah, you're right. So Bex Luthor, what'd you think of this one?
I just shout out to Candy and Bambi and the other one,
Randy. Yeah.
Randy. Yeah, for just like busting their way into the apartment. They're like, we need to see Peter Parker shirtless. Like, it's very important. And I would say, yeah, you know what? It is important. No, I agree fully with you guys. When I honestly, the first page, I knew it was a dream because, like, duh, he's naked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, and there's a cowboy and Wolverine's there, like. So you know going into it, it's a dream, and it works a lot better than, like, oh, it was a dream the whole time, none of it mattered. Because, like, yeah, it's a dream, but they also say that he can't die in it, because it's, like, the nightmare dimension, right? So it's not like it's just a dream, it's basically another dimension that he's in.
Right.
Even though he's technically dreaming, so it, like, kind of brings that whole, like, dream thing, it flips it around a little bit. It's not just a dream, but also it is a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole crossover thing with Hulk and Doctor Strange, and yeah, Doctor Strange would just set the Hulk on Nightmare for eternity in the dream dimension, because Doctor Strange is a bit of a dick. From any of the Doctor Strange I've ever read, he's always just kind of a bit of a dick.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, I mean, he's very powerful, so... And people do piss him off a lot. Like, I wouldn't put up with half the shit that Doctor Strange puts up with on a daily basis. Like, Nightmare thinking he could outwit Doctor Strange. Like, who are you, Dracula-looking... But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun in a weird, ridiculous kind of way that some of the other ones are not as fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think the reason this works a lot better than any Marvel team-up that we've ever read or anything like that is, like, the Hulk is just an antagonist for antagonist's sake. Like, he's just a big monster, right? It's not like he has to team up with Peter and they've got to figure out a way to get them to talk to each other. Like, no, it's Peter versus Nightmare, and the Hulk's also there.
Mm-hmm.
And just has to punch him a whole bunch. So it's interesting. Kind of makes me wonder if they're ever gonna bring it up again in Web of, which I don't remember there being much Nightmare in Web of.
I don't think so, no.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think in Web.
Which is fine, I guess. But I like Nightmare's design. I think he's cool looking.
It's a really cool premise for a character, too.
And he's like a big weenie too. It's great. Like he's like, haha, I got my powers back, and then immediately Hulk grabs him. He's like, no. I love that. I love when characters are big
like
weenies.
A little bit of Freddy Krueger, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
Like, and this is a character from the 60s, and obviously then DC or Neil Gaiman did Sandman, so it's a little bit of that, but this is obviously the Marvel version.
I really don't like the conclusion. I don't like that Hulk just reaches back. Mm-hmm. Like the solution is that once Hulk is pushed into this like void, he's trapped in there and he won't be able to escape because he'll like go into his mind will like go mad from the emptiness because it's absolute nothing. Mm-hmm. And then he's able to just like reach back and grab Nightmare without like looking in or peering. I'm just like, it just felt so like cheap.
Sure.
But yeah, this whole premise, it's like those memes where like you fed a computer a bunch of Marvel comics and had it spit out something, and it's like, oh, Hulk's conscious is chasing around Spiderman and a Nightmare in a another dimension. Mm-hmm. It's wild. It's so weird. And like, yeah, again, like the story is kind of not great, but in a fun way. Like I still had fun reading it the entire time.
Right. Well, one thing we haven't talked about is the artwork. You want to talk about contrast between the last issue we read and this one? This is Sal Buscema, who's we've talked about him a lot. He's kind of like, an elder statesman of Marvel at this point. He's been around since the 60s. I absolutely love this art. He's teamed up with Armando Gil, but I don't think I've seen him inked by him before, but I thought the art was really good. Murad, what's your impression of this art?
It's like so not what I'm used to. I feel like I'm like, it's like out of time for me. I'm just not used to even looking at like the coloring. And this feels like, and when you say he's an elder statesman, because I was like, how old is this? Like the style of it is so much different than what I feel like Ace's story was done by a much younger artist.
Absolutely true. Yep. Yeah, like I bet you that guy was probably 20 years younger than Sal Buscema. By the way, Sal Buscema's still alive, but he's like 100 or something, you know.
Oh my goodness.
So, no, I don't know how old he is, but he's still kicking. But
yeah,
barely.
but it looks very. The style of this issue looks very 60s.
Absolutely, yep.
To me, it's not taking chances the way that the artist was, and really, like, in terms of structure, it's a lot more just kind of like straightforward, but it's great stuff. It's hard to argue with.
Right, I agree. Bex Luthor?
It was okay. I didn't think it was anything special, I guess. It just seemed pretty, like, basic to me. Like, there were some pages where it's like, if there's, like, more details to it, I really enjoyed it. But half the time, it's just a blank nothingness, and it kind of was boring me a little bit. Like, I read this one really quickly. It was a very easy read. I didn't have to take time to, like, look at the panels and be like, oh, that's interesting. I was just like, yep, Spider-Man and the Hulk and Nightmare, and then it's over. Like, it wasn't, like, it's not bad art by any means. Like, the page where it says, welcome to the Nightmare, and Hulk's, like, crashing through, I really like that. And, like, the expressions of everybody is really well done, but I just kind of was a little, the last one was so stylized in such an interesting way that this one just kind of was, like, two Sunday funnies for me, I think.
Okay, I get you, yep. Okay, so I'm definitely going to recommend this one. I mean, again, definitely not essential reading, but I had a lot of fun reading it. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I had fun reading it. I think the art is extremely suitable for the story as well. Like, it is very different from the annual that we just read, but I think if it was done in that style, it would feel weird.
Right, I agree 100%.
So
yep.
I think that, the art and the story complement each other really well, and it is a fun, easy read. So for that, I'll definitely recommend it.
Right. Murad, what about you?
I'd recommend it for the fact that it makes you interested in what the heck is going on with Doctor Strange
There you go.
in 1985. It just, like, I like how something that was probably kind of major in another book, because if I recall correctly, one of Doctor Strange's, like, arch enemies is Nightmare. So the fact that he's put him on the run, Hulk is there, or Hulk's subconscious is just running amok in the dream dimension. Spider-Man got pulled in there. He can die there. I thought it was neat. Like you said, if there was a filler issue, then this could be it. It's a dream. It's self-contained adventure. Doesn't really have too many implications for Spider-Man, but it fills that month with an adventure that still they can get back to wherever the story was going after that.
Right. Bex Luthor, do you recommend this one?
Yeah, if you see it, read it. I mean, it was a really easy read. It wasn't, like, too crazy or anything like that. And obviously, if you're a fan of Hulk smashing stuff, lots of good smashing stuff in here. I think it was just, like, maybe a little too juvenile for me. Not that like, ever is a bad thing. Like, I love me some juvenile garbage. Not that this is garbage, but, like, I don't know. Just not for me, but if you want to read it, go for it. We're only on issue 7 of WebWeb, and it's already a filler one. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, this book got off to a rough start. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, okay, with that, we are gonna move on to Amazing Spider-Man 269, and I'm gonna quickly say that the reason that we had the fill-in issue When Cometh the Commuter is because Jim Owsley thought this story was so monumental, he was gonna save it for a graphic novel. But then thought better of it and decided to just use it as a 2-parter in Amazing Spider-Man. So that's where we are with this issue. And I believe, Murad, you're going to do this one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So, we've got this beautiful cover. Firelord blasting Spider-Man.
Yep.
This is super cool. So Fire Lord kind of arrives. He's kind of traveling throughout the universe, gives us a bit of exposition of, who he is, how he used to be one of the Heralds of Galactus, and he's got the power cosmic. He's stopping giant meteors. He's basically just showing he's like super, like powerful character. And he's hungry, and he's got to find his way to his next adventure. And so he sees Earth, and he says, "Oh yeah, this is a planet of pleasure, and they're known for their earthly delights." And so he's pretty excited. And then we go into Spider-Man. Spider-Man is Peter Parker in this exact moment, and he's hanging out with his Aunt May, and she's got all of her pals over. The whole neighborhood is over at Aunt May's place, so they're all hanging out, and they're watching on the news. They're talking about mutants and how we've got to be, mutants are suspect. And in the background of that conversation, Aunt May is saying to Peter, "Hey, you don't see you quite as much these days. I think you should go back to school. You're doing your freelance photography." And all of a sudden, Spider-Man gets this just like spider sense going off the charts. And he's like, whoa, something is going on. And it blasted by very quickly overhead, kind of drawing him out of this situation. It was Fire-Lord. He's blasting around looking for some food, and I love this.
Right.
Comes across Tony's Pizza, and he's just like, "Oh yes, I had this Earth specialty pizza." Totally like 1985. I love it so much. It's just this guy melts a pizza oven. He doesn't understand Earth customs. And so he kind of makes a scene, and everybody's got this mutant hysteria fever. And makes me want to, again, like really like makes me want to know what's going on in X-Men right now, because it's like there's a lot of hysteria. The people are very quick to think that this guy is a mutant, and this construction worker who witnesses him melting a pizza oven in the process of trying to order a pizza gathers up like all of his buddies, like, "Hey, grab your sledgehammers, let's get this guy." Pete makes his way out, and as he does, he runs into one of his Aunt May's friends, who's like, "Hey, man, I know it's not really my place, but I'm gonna unload everything I think you." I feel like anytime somebody pulls you aside and says, "Hey, I know it's not any of my business, but I want to tell you a few things," they're probably not gonna say, "I know it's not any of my business. You're really great. I think you're doing a swell job." This guy gives Pete a verbal lashing, and Pete's like, no, you don't know how it is, and he doesn't. He doesn't know how it is. This guy's Spider-Man. And so then all of a sudden there's like a somebody in the shadows watching. And I don't think I've ever actually seen this in a comic, where it just shows a few people in a panel and has someone hiding there and gives an unobserved, the furtive stranger quietly slips away. He'll be returning in the days to come. So like, it's just straight up tells you this person is going to be returning in the day to come.
That's a convention of like the narration at this time. They do that all the time. Like, they'd actually remember, like, we've seen this, Josh, where they'll actually add in the words like, interlude, fade to black,
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous, but it's funny. It's cool.
I that was very jarring and strange to me. Just these 3 panels, super isolated away from the story. Mm-hmm. Just like, this is going to mean something down the line.
Right.
Whereas I feel like, I guess more modern, and because I'm always reading stuff from the last 20 years, they would have illustrated that in a way without, like, just straight up telling you, like, make note of this guy following here.
Right.
Anyways, he finds his costume, starts trying to figure out. He's worried about the Beyonder. I guess Secret Wars 2 just concluded recently, and so he had some.
It's still happening, actually.
Okay, so Secret Wars 2 is actually still happening at this point.
Yes, unfortunately.
Wait. Secret Wars, aren't they on like another planet or dimension, Battle World or something?
That's the first Secret Wars.
Yeah, Secret Wars 2 is like the fallout of those characters kind of coming back to Earth. Or the Beyonder, the guy who brought them
coming
all
to
there.
Earth, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're worried about Beyonder.
Right.
And he's like, this guy must be Beyonder's associated. Lands at the pizza shop and sees these guys blasting a hose at Firelord. He's just not having it at all. Busts them up. Spider-Man is just trying to kind of draw him away. But he's holding his own against like a cosmic level entity, which makes the Ace story all the much stranger. But we can talk about that after.
Right.
But he gets his staff away from him, thinking that it can, like, defeat him. But the staff is actually just a way for him to harness, and he still has his powers. It's not the source of his powers. He's still very powerful. Chases him around town a bit more. Spider-Man is kind of like, what am I doing? I got to get some help. He distracts him. He pitches his fire stick down into the bottom of the ocean. He'll be like, this will keep him busy for a minute. I'll go get Fantastic Four or Avengers, somebody to help me. Tries to show up at the Baxter building. Baxter building's gone?
Right.
Currently? Which is awesome. I'm just like, the Baxter building does not exist. It's just straight up out of existence, like a hole in the ground. So, like, he's like, oh, I don't even know how to find the Fantastic Four unless I show up at the Baxter building. Then he's like, how do I get a hold of the Avengers? He's like, oh, shit. He's like, Firelord is looking for Spider-Man. He's not looking for Peter Parker. I can, there's a very easy way to get off this guy's trail. And he starts getting out of his costume, being like, all right, I'm just going to, hide out for a little while. And he drops his wallet and he picks it up and sees a picture of him and Aunt May, Uncle Ben. And he's like, whoa, dude, this is where it all started, was you shirking that responsibility. And he's not going to let, that happen to anybody else. And if he has the ability to do it, he's got the power. He's got the responsibility. Classic Spider-Man. And he's like, no. Where is he? I'll fight him. If I die fighting him, well then, so be it. And I had to read the next issue.
Of course. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say anything because you're reading that in your next podcast.
That's right. Oh, so you already did read it?
Yeah, no, I couldn't help myself.
Oh, nice. See, they sucked you in.
Yeah, no, it was like, I gotta see this. But still, like I said, I loved it. It was a great issue.
See, here's the thing. There's plenty more where this came from. Like, if you enjoyed this issue, there's a whole run of Spider-Man by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz that's basically like this. Like, classic Marvel fun with classic Marvel art, a little bit of humor, a little bit of adventure, a little bit of angst, But I think because I've read so many of them, it didn't really impress me as much. Like, I definitely enjoyed it and I could read it again, but it's not a favorite of mine. And this is sort of considered a classic story because Spider-Man, especially in part 2, was able to hold his own against Firelord. But I feel like
even in this issue,
he
holds his own against Firelord.
But I feel like it makes him too powerful, especially like you said, when they're trying to show that he can get beat up by a street tough in another story that came out the same month. It just doesn't. That aspect of it doesn't quite work for me. But I did think it was a fun issue.
Oh, don't think that me saying that I love it, meaning that I don't think that it doesn't make sense in comparison to what else is going on in the series. I just love it because Firelord loves pizza.
Right, exactly.
That's so great.
Doesn't know how to order, and he's like, I'll melt the oven. He's like, oh, my ovens aren't hot enough. He's like, I can heat your oven. Melts it. It's like, he doesn't, like, no, dude, it's a machine that we use to cook the pizza. What are you doing, Fire Lord? Still makes him the pizza, though.
It's so great. So we just recently read a story actually from Secret Wars, and it was the Beyonder, and he is in New York, and it's the same sort of like fish out of water, like goofy story. This is so much more fun than the Beyonder, because the Beyonder story, it's like things are just happening to be like a funny joke. And we're seeing all of these Marvel heroes that we've read, like Spider-Man's there, and then all of a sudden the Fantastic Four and Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Like, it's just throwing all of these things to be like, look, isn't this funny? Haha, look at this like weird guy is interacting with all your superheroes that you love. And this is so much better because we get some time and like some moments with this character to kind of like breathe. And I know he's like a god, like this alien, but to be human, you know what I mean? Like we get a sense of who he is as a person, as a being, and it's so fun. I love the stuff in the pizza shop. The story is not great. I mean, if you could even really call it a story, it's really like the first half of one. And I know this is a part one of part two. So I feel like it's going to be hard to recommend or not recommend this for me. But that pizza place stuff was fantastic. But I will say it always really annoys me when two heroes fight each other. I just don't like it.
Right.
Because it just feels like a misunderstanding just so we can see them punch each other. Right. And this misunderstanding is because of a piece of pizza? It's just like
it
really
makes it even better.
Oh my God.
No, it's less about that. It's more about mutant discrimination.
Right.
It's about the hysteria that the mutant proliferation is kind of causing in the everyday people, that they see any superpowered person and they think it's a mutant and they lash out at them. And this guy, as a cosmic entity, is just like, what? I came for the pizza. You know, I'm on vacation.
But like, why would Spider-Man jump in and attack immediately as well? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, would they not see Spider-Man as a mutant?
Oh,
no, I think
is he not a superhero that like jumps around and has like inhuman powers?
That is a plot hole of Marvel, because Chris Claremont made so much effort to have people, you know, just discriminate against mutants. But as people pointed out, how would the average person know the difference between a mutant and a mutate or a superhero, right?
Right.
Doesn't really make much sense.
I think the difference is that those other heroes are way more public, and that mutants kind of are more, they showed up after and they hid their powers a little bit more. Like Captain America was like a product of the government. Spider-Man was always in the newspapers before mutants were around. So like, I think it's because they were kind of like established. They were pre-established heroes. You know, like they already had society on their side, because it was a time when there weren't, you know, necessarily like lots of mutants around. And the X-Men were really, and their enemies were really the only mutants. And then, you know, like, and then mutants got, I don't know. I think maybe it's a plot hole, or maybe I'm like trying to fill that plot hole, be like, no, everything I read makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think it's a plot hole. And I want to tell you why.
Sure.
Have you ever been on a little website called Facebook? Or maybe even one called Twitter?
No.
Turns out, it doesn't matter what you look like or who you are at all. People will hate you regardless of any sort of characteristics or traits you might have or share with other people. So, I don't know. It seems incredibly realistic to me for people to decide that a bunch of people are part of a group and they hate that group. But these people these people are okay because I know them, and they would never.
Exactly.
But like these people, not okay.
It's about the mutant hate. It's about bigotry.
You know what? That's actually a good point, because knowing what we know now, you could argue that the cognitive dissonance that we see with people, for example, seeing it A-okay for a certain group of people to carry guns, but not A-okay for a certain other group of people to carry guns, is a perfect analogy for how someone could hate a mutant but not hate a superhero. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
what is the difference between a mutant and a superhero?
Well, it's in Marvel. It's mutant and mutate, and I know that because I didn't have a girlfriend for 5 years in high school. But anyway, so a mutant is born.
Or 5 years after that.
Or 5 years after that. So a mutant is born with her powers, and a mutate gains their powers through artificial means.
That's see.
But some people are born with their powers, but they're also not mutants. And like you have to have the X gene, right? To be a mutant.
Well, who's born with them but that isn't a mutant?
Franklin Richards.
He's considered a mutant. Yeah, he's a mutant.
He's not. They retconned that, guys.
Wow. Oh, but that's different,
man,
though.
I
That's
don't
just
know.
that's just a
I
legal
think that's what I
reason,
mean.
though.
It's like,
but really, he's a mutant.
He's not a mutant now, though. Like
we don't talk
that was
about
like
that.
a huge thing with X-Men going on right now. Is like he's not a mutant. He rewrote reality to pretend to be a mutant so that they think he's a mutant, but he's not.
Okay, but we're not
maybe this is a better way of saying it. Is that Captain America and Iron Man and Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four are more like public heroes. They work more in the public. X-Men will work a little bit more in the shadows, I think. We're getting way off topic from Spider-Man issue, whatever. But I think that, like, the X-Men work in the shadows a little bit more. They're not, like, as much of a, in the papers, save the day kind of group. Because they save the day, but they're still kind of hated. Whereas Spider-Man... Yeah, a lot of people hate Spider-Man, but lots of the city loves him too, Mm-hmm. And the Avengers have Avengers Mansion. Like, they have a public headquarters. Mm-hmm. Same with the Fantastic Four. Like, you know where to find them. They're not hiding amongst you, I think that is the difference for, like, humans in the Marvel Universe, like, looking at the Avengers and then maybe looking at mutants. I know it doesn't make their bigotry okay, but I'm just saying, like, I think that is, like, the idea is, like, oh, yeah, those ones are okay because, they follow rules where mutants, there could just be anybody who's got powers and they're going to hurt me, Right. I don't know. This is getting pretty deep into...
Yeah, we probably put more thought into it than they did, but anyway...
Discrimination does not need any rhyme or reason because it is not a
rational,
logical,
it's not a
right?
rational, logical thought. It's stupid and dumb and pointless, and that's the same thing. It's like, oh, I hate mutants because they're mutants, but Spider-Man's cool because well, he's Spider-Man, obviously.
It's exactly how bigotry works in the real world. It's completely senseless. So
Spider-Man's not a mutant. He was just bitten by a spider, which mutated his DNA.
Yeah, and that's okay with me, you know. But these other ones aren't. Like, it's classic bigotry. It's senseless. Mm-hmm. But that's what I thought, like, it made a real point of being like, people think this guy's a mutant and they want to kill him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did melt a pizza. He did melt a pizza oven in the process.
Yeah, but just call the cops then. Like, don't go. They went after him straight with the fire hose.
Well, the thing is, too, is like the shop owner's like, it's okay, I'll still make you a pizza. And then, like, afterwards, he's like, oh, I'm so glad you like the pizza. And they're like hanging out in the shop together.
Well, I think he's kind of afraid. He's like, okay, if this guy melted my oven, he's kind of hostage. He's kind of hostage to making this guy a pizza.
So yeah, this was good old-fashioned Marvel superhero fun. So I definitely enjoyed it. I recommend it. Again, not essential reading, but it was fun. Murad, I'm going to assume you recommend it.
Oh, 100%. Like, how could we not recommend it after chatting about it? Look at the conversation that it spurred.
There you go.
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a very mild recommend. I feel like with the other half, it would be more of a recommend for me, because this really does feel like just half of a story.
Right.
So I will give like a tentative recommend. Yeah.
Bex Luthor.
Oh, absolutely. It's got all of my favorite little tidbits of characterization and stuff like that. You have Fire Lord. He's like, that's the planet where they got good food. Like, I love that trope, by the way, where like all these aliens, they're like, I could destroy Earth, but that's where they got like ramen and pasta and pizza and potatoes. Like, I can't do that. Like, that's a big thing in, I don't know if anybody watches Dragon Ball Super.
No.
But like the god of death is like, I could like just destroy everybody, but your wife makes really good sandwiches, so I just won't.
That's amazing.
Like, I love that. And then I love just Nathan tearing Peter a new one, being like, you're being really disrespectful to your aunt right now. Love that. Just the civilians going, mutant, get him, and like rush. Like, they see this guy who's covered in fire, and they rush over with sticks and hoses. Like, these guys, so ready to go down with the fight. Peter changing into his costume and forgetting which one he put on in a tree.
Right.
That's super funny to me.
Awesome.
What was the other one that I really, really, really like? Oh yeah, him just forgetting that the Baxter building's not there anymore.
I love that. Yep.
He gets all the way there, and it's a beautiful splash page too of the building not being there anymore. I love that
page.
It's
Yeah.
great.
How do you?
I gotta point out, when I read that as a kid, my socks were knocked off, because I was like, it just hits home how integrated everything was at the time and how tight continuity was, And the fact that he forgot, even though he's in the Marvel Universe, but I just thought that it was cool that, the writers led you on that path for a few pages, and they pulled the rug out from underneath you. I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you want to read Fantastic Four, anyway.
Yeah,
it's like, well, where'd the building go?
This, I think, rode the line perfectly of hinting at other things that are going on in the universe without stopping the story to be like, read this story next.
Yeah,
like, it was
beat you over the head with it.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of made sense that everything was here. Like, Peter is talking about what's going on in Secret Wars, because he's like, dang, this guy looks as powerful as the Beyonder, but it's not him. I thought it was going to be him, and I was going to have to fight that guy again. And then he's like, I can't do this alone. I've got to go get the Fantastic Four. Shit, the whole building is gone. I forgot. Like, it feels natural that he's making all of these other Marvel Comics references. But okay, one last thing before we switch. I also love that we open up the comic and Peter is hanging out with his aunt. He's giving all of her friends hugs and chatting it up and being so sweet, and then Nathan just yells at him.
Yeah.
It would be different if he just ran into him and Peter hadn't been to see Aunt May in a long time, but we just see him just hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, it's great to see you. Oh, sorry, I've got to run off. I've got to go to work today. And then Nathan's like, are you kidding me right now? Really? You would do that to your aunt?
Right.
It's like, I got to go to work, dude. What the hell?
I think it was implied that it was just a brief visit in the first time in a long while. And it's just you can't show up and be like, hey. Yeah, I mean, I made the assumption that this guy's been watching.
Yeah, so this is Aunt May's boyfriend.
Yeah.
I don't think they're engaged. I think it's just boyfriend.
I think they are. I think
are they engaged?
Fiance, I think.
So yeah, he's definitely been around, and it's also just super weird too, because he's always been I don't want to get involved. This is between you and Peter, and I think that you should mend that relationship. And now all of a sudden he's like, listen, you've been a real dick.
But what makes me mad about that? Oh, sorry. But what makes me mad about that is Aunt May wasn't talking to Peter. Like, they were both together on the not talking to each other prior to this.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just Peter wasn't showing up to visit. Aunt May also wasn't calling him or anything.
And I think Peter had tried to, contact Aunt May, and Aunt May was just like, no, I'm pissed at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's like, I'm not ready to talk yet.
Yeah.
And then they finally reconcile, 2 issues ago, and Nathan's all uppity about it. Like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Also, I have to point out, just for those that want to know, the Baxter building was destroyed by Dr. Doom.
Amazing.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Just that building, though? Like, nothing around it.
No, I think he flew it into space, then
Cool.
destroyed it.
Duh, Becca, come on.
Yeah, come on. Anyway.
I love comic books so much.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my god. No, he flew into space. Duh.
Of course he did.
Why wouldn't I was like, he must have just teleported it somewhere, obviously. Destroy a building in the middle of New York.
Okay, so we all recommend that comic. Now we're going to jump to Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, number 107. And Becca, I believe you're going to summarize this one, right?
Right. I said I would do that, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Can I take that back?
Nope.
We only actually read 3 issues. This was weird. Not doing Peter Parker number 107 this week. I don't know why. It's such a weird decision that you made, Mike, and not me. But yeah, so we start off, and you get some backstory on Jean DeWolf, like her family, her growing up, her relationship with her mother, her not relationship with her father, her better relationship with her stepfather, and then she's dead, just shot point blank in her apartment. So we go into the issue titled The Death of Jean DeWolf Part 1, Original Sin, and you have Peter Parker taking pictures, and then he runs into one of Aunt May's friends, tenants, whatever, and he's flashing a bunch of money around. He's like, oh, I just got my social security checks, and Peter's like, don't want to be flashing that cash around, and then immediately this guy gets mugged. Immediately, Peter turns around. He is 10 feet from this man, and he gets mugged straight up.
And he gets mugged by what looks like a human Trolls doll.
With the teeny tiniest little vest.
Yeah.
So obviously Peter's like, how could you do that? And then rips off his clothes to turn on his spider costume, and then he starts going after these guys, catches up to them, whatever, and then goes to the cops and with them, and that's when he finds out that Jean DeWolf has been shot. Mm-hmm. And he says, oh crud, as if this isn't an important death in the story, and a good friend of his and somebody he respected and trusted. Mm-hmm. Oh crud.
Oh crud.
Oh crud. Looks like she's been shot.
Who did it? That's it. Oh crud. I'm looking at the panel right now.
Yeah. And he just, it's like a Scooby-Doo, uh-oh.
Zoinks.
Yeah.
So then we quickly pan to a church, and there's a man doing confession, and then we leave that just as quickly and go back to the Bugle, where this priest is looking for Robbie, talks to him for a minute. There's a weird racial tension, and then we go back to Peter, and he's around the police precinct, and he's asking around about who is running the Jean DeWolf case. So he comes across this detective, and he rides on the car and then in the car for a bit. And then they share hot chocolate together in a very sweet moment where they're talking about who could potentially have killed her. And in a very somber, they just talk. And then I really enjoyed the last 3 panels where he admits that he did, in fact, like her. And then there's nothing. And then we switch to Daredevil, which gave me a little bit of a whiplash. I was like, we go right from one panel of silence to just Daredevil swinging around, catching a ride on a helicopter to get to court. And it turns out he is defending the guys who mugged Aunt May's friend. And they get away with it, kind of, sort of. I'm not really sure how the law works to this extent, how deep it goes. They did assault a man. So I don't...
I think this wasn't a trial.
Yeah, it's just for the bail. They basically... and I was confused by that too, but basically he just convinced the judge not to set bail, but to let them go free without bail because blah, blah, blah. But they still have to face the trial eventually.
Okay, so we still have an assault charge. Mm-hmm. Cool, good for that. And then Peter comes is watching the trial because it was Aunt May's friend and Aunt May is there, and he's like, how could you do your job? Like, it's like public defenders everyone has the right to a lawyer, Peter. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just how democracy and the law works. But then there's like a little bit of a flashback, or not a flashback, where we switch back over to just Daredevil, and he's in him and the judge are talking, right? And he's in the judge's office, and there's a gunman in the judge's office, and he shoots at Daredevil, and then he goes to shoot the judge, and then the issue ends. And it's a cliffhanger, and you're like, well, is this the guy that killed Jean DeWolf? Probably. But who knows? And then that was the issue.
Yeah.
Shout out to Daredevil.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be the guy that kills Jean DeWolf because he's wearing like green cowboy, or like green like pirate boots, like supervillain pirate boots. So I think he's going to be somebody. Purple
shirt, purple pants, green gloves, green mask, green pirate boots. That is a man trying to establish a look.
So here's the thing. I know how the story turns out, and I do think it's good. But knowing how it turns out, I think it's also that some of the setup is really awkward. But I think the elements are all good. But it's like even like this opening 2 or 3 pages with Jean DeWolf's origin, it was a little bit awkward. But then I love the fact that, and I think he stole this from Alan Moore, but it opened, like the door's opening up, and she's like, "What was that pounding at the door in my head? I wonder why I feel so relaxed, and I wonder why was I thinking of my life just now." And then we get the reveal that she's already dead. Like, that's pretty freaking gruesome and also pretty cool. So, I don't know. Like I said, there's some awkward elements, but I did think this issue was good. Ryan, what did you think of it?
I liked it. I liked seeing Daredevil, and it almost becomes his comic at the end. Like, and you're like, well, wait a second. It's like, it just kind of seamlessly transitions from being a Spider-Man book to being a Daredevil book for the last like 5 or 6 pages. I did enjoy it. But I thought it was like maybe a little bit, maybe because I'm not as invested in Jean DeWolf. I mean, how long was she one of Spider-Man's friends? Or, I mean, he said, "Oh crud."
Yeah, I think like maybe
it was just a shock response.
I think maybe 5 years. Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
Crud.
Yeah. Oh crud. Oh wait, sorry guys. No. 9 years. She was in the comic for 9 years.
So
double crud.
Yeah, there's a lot of times, actually, in almost every single one of these books this month, or I guess this week for us, Peter has felt off. Like the writing isn't always quite Peter. In that moment, that like, crud, I was like, what? Like, this is somebody you've known for a really long time. Usually, like, deaths in Peter Parker's lives have like huge impacts on him, and he cared more about Matt defending these thugs that mugged a guy than the murder of his friend.
Yeah.
Like, he was more passionate about that than her death. Yeah, I don't know if it's just like the writing at the time or what. Like, even in, I think it was in Amazing and Spectacular, Peter Parker seemed like skeevy too. Like, he was like taking pictures of women. He's like, even if the Bugle doesn't use this, I'll use this later.
Yeah, well,
it's
I
like,
should point
what
out,
the?
that was Peter. 3 issues this month were written by Peter David, right? So the Peter Parker Annual, Peter Parker, and Web of Spider-Man. So that could be why his characterization seemed different than you're used to.
Yeah,
I did notice that's the skeeviness with the photos too. I think that's a Peter.
Yeah,
David thing.
I did not like that.
No,
that photo stuff. I was like, whoa, man, you're Spider-Man. Don't be a creep.
Yeah.
I was disappointed.
It felt weird. Yeah, it felt really weird. So I think the only part that really felt like Peter in this comic was what Becca was talking about, where he's talking to the officer in the cop car. Like that was the most like human, real thing that happened in this book.
Mm-hmm. Becca, like what you did the review, but what did you think of the issue?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I with the weird characterization of Peter. Like, I think who did you say wrote this again?
Peter David.
Yeah, I think Peter David sucks and might hate women. Not to like just be throwing around, whatever. But I don't think, and it's weird because like the intro, like there's some parts where women are just so objectified, like, and even in her kill shot, you have to have her like tits out, like. It's a little on the upsetting side, but I did like her backstory about how she wanted to become a cop, but also at the same time, she can't just want to be a cop to be a cop. She's got to have daddy issues, and not only that, but her mother also has to have some sort of weird daddy issues where she only dates cops. I'm like, it was gross to read. Actually, now that I'm saying it, I don't like it anymore. I changed my mind. It's just gross. It's just weird. Women don't have to be defined by their fathers, and then they also don't have to die with sports bras on, but like whatever. And then we immediately go from dead girl tits out to alive girl tits out, which great transition. Love that.
That's all the artist though. That's not Peter David. That's
but it's even in the story though. Like
yeah, no, it's all bad.
Like he specifically says, at best, the Bugle pay nicely for some shots of a real looker to brighten the front page. At worst, I'll have a nice decoration for my dark room.
Ew.
It's just gross. It's
creepy.
Awful. Yeah.
And let's all remember, last week, Peter did kiss a 16-year-old, so ew.
Yeah, this is why I wanted my notes. Because we're like gone through so many issues. I made specific note of that. I was like, what a strange couple panels that don't add anything to the story. They're just basically like, it's just complete fodder. It doesn't have anything to do with the story whatsoever. It's like that could have been used for something better,
Yeah. So like that whole thing I dislike, and then the whole thing with these goons mugging that guy I think is a waste. Like, I hope it comes to something in the next issue. Like, I'm not going to say it's whatever, because, like, this is obviously a two-parter. Same with, like, when we go back randomly to the Bugle and the church. Like, I hope something's got to happen, right? For a reason? With this priest?
Yes, but I can't say what yet. But
That's fine. And then, the only part of this issue that I actually enjoyed was this somber car ride with the detective, where Peter keeps talking about wanting that hot cocoa, and it makes me feel like he's finally come to terms with the fact that this woman that he respected is dead, and he just needs a little bit of comfort. And he even takes his mask off in front of this stranger. I mean, he just pulls it up, obviously, but like that's still a big deal. And then even those last two shots of like the above shot where it says "I liked her too," and then there's just a textless panel. I wish it wasn't just the two panels crammed into the end of this one. I wish that was a full page to just emphasize that, like, this is the death of an important character in an issue. And then we go, bam, Daredevil swinging around. And I was like, oh my god, whiplash.
Yeah, remove the super objectifying stuff that was pointless and have a nice 2-page spread. I liked her too. The sun is set. Like, there was a editor problems. Like, somebody needed to be like, what are you doing? No. We're changing it around a bit.
Well, that's the thing is, like I said, I think all the elements are good, but the pacing is off. Like so yeah, like you said, we wasted at least a page on the woman he's taking photos of. We waste pages on other things that I don't remember if this mugging even comes to anything, to be honest. Whereas other parts of the book are crammed together with like all this loaded with all this text and narration. So I think it's definitely a pacing problem.
It also feels weird that she is killed off in like the first few pages. Like, wouldn't it feel like a better story if Jane she was helping Peter like solve the murder of the judge, and then by the end the guy shows up and kills her at the end, so we have time to see in this book Peter and her getting along and like finding out a little bit more of her backstory and seeing them together as friends. Like it felt very much like just a plot point for her to die in this instead of like a meaningful, impactful thing that happens.
Yeah, I think that's the problem is like they're assuming that you read Spider-Man and you know who Jean DeWolf is.
Right.
So it would be shocking if you're reading it every week or every month.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been so much more effective. You're right. If give her at least half an issue where they're together, they're interacting, blah, blah, blah. And then even if you wanted to keep the surprise of maybe then it cuts away and it cuts back and she's having this flashback of her life. So then we can have the shocking reveal of her being dead. You could still do it that way, but just opening with it is really weird. You're right. Because it's like the opposite. It makes it feel like, oh, this is a new character, but it's not. She's been around for 9 years.
Right. And like even me as somebody who is familiar with this character, I was like, oh, okay, so I guess she's dead now. Like if I had time and it definitely reading the annual before this one helped because I read these two at the same time. And I'm actually really thankful for that because it almost felt like one went into the other because I had this time to kind of like sit with her and like have like a already established emotion and feeling about this character, and then to see her die, it was very impactful. Where it's just like, I know of this character and I know that she's Peter's friend or Spider-Man's friend. So seeing her just die and then Peter almost have no reaction is just like there was absolutely no impact for her death.
It seems almost disrespectful for Jean DeWolf, especially because I really, really, really liked her character when she was written well. She's a badass. She was a young woman who was like the police commissioner, like of New York City, like a big deal. Like she was a badass lady. Nobody like what she said went. And she was smart and she was cool and it just is kind of a kick in the teeth. Yeah. It sucks whenever a character is killed, especially like female characters in these male-centric books, and especially when they're killed so unceremoniously and like just to see Peter's non-reaction, it was
oh crud.
Yeah, it was not like if you replace the oh crud, like I don't know if that's like is it an 80s thing, maybe? But, like, if he would just said, she's like, this cop is like, he's dead, someone blew her away. And then it's just a panel of Peter going, what?
Right,
like, that would have been way better. Because he goes, oh, crud, who did it? Like, like, no, like, immediately going from her death to who did it. Like, just bypassing her completely. It just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It really rubs me the wrong way. And like comic book issues, a lot of, especially these older ones, when somebody dies, when a main or a supporting character dies, it's usually at the end of the issue, right? This one was, I don't Daredevil know. Gets more page than she does.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is they really could have done the exact same story with any character. It didn't have to be a character who'd been around 9 years. They could have just had some random person get killed, right? And it could have been probably the exact same story.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it doesn't make a death of a character that's been around for 9 years. I didn't realize that part of it. I mean, it certainly makes it less impactful. I think, like, the idea that they use in those first few panels could have been, like, that could have been paced out over the whole issue, and then you realize at the very end of the issue, oh, like, it's from her perspective, but, you know, like, she wasn't really weaved into the story. It's just like, yep, she's dead. And then the gang fight is kind of lame because it's just some street thugs. And then we're in court. Like, I guess it's just like they needed a reason to get Daredevil and Spider-Man in a room together. And they were just like, well, we'll kill off, like, a character. So it'll put, you know, We'll have somebody who goes across a couple people's storylines and kills characters in their stories. A judge that Daredevil was friends with, and somebody that Spider-Man knew, and then like I don't know what's going on in the other. Like I feel like there's something else brewing. Like there's somebody going across the Marvel universe, killing certain side characters. To what end? I don't know. But
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to keep reading to find out, right?
I don't want to. This issue made me want to. Like, if we weren't reviewing them for this podcast, if I was just reading these for fun, I would have been like, "Oh, that's when I stop." I was
Agreed.
like, "Oh."
Yeah.
It would have made me stop. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm not buying this anymore."
This didn't make me want to try to find out who killed her, because her death itself was like it had no impact.
Well, there's 3 more to go. It's a 4-part story, so...
It's 4 parts?
Yep.
I thought it was 2.
Yep, 4 parts.
We're never...
oh no, I don't envy you guys. It was like kind of my least favorite. I would say, I don't know. I think that Firelord one I really did enjoy, and the Dream one was fun too. But yeah, this one was probably like on the lower end of things.
Well, if we're rating them, the Firelord one was by far my least favorite, but this one did have its issues, so...
You liked this one more than the Firelord one?
Absolutely,
He
yeah.
wanted pizza. This is like... this is so, like, sad after I was, like, having a fun time reading about this fireman who wanted pizza, and then my favorite character gets killed immediately, unceremoniously, just fridged for no reason. And I go... Fucking hate Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Stupid.
I don't think that there was anything redeeming about this one. Like for the Firelord one, yeah, the story's not great, and there's kind of some goofy things, but I had fun reading it. Like, there's fun moments.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like things that I enjoy and I can kind of look past. Especially like the Web is the same thing, where it's like, yeah, okay, Peter's stuck in a dream, great. Like, I haven't heard this one before, but there's fun things happening. They're doing like new, fresh ideas in this kind of tired idea. With Spectacular, it's just like, oh, like there was no impact on this main character or supporting character's death. And then throughout the issue, there was nothing where I was like, I wasn't rooting for Peter. I wasn't rooting for Matt. Like, things just happened. I hope that changes with the rest of the story. Hopefully this was just a stumble on part 1, and parts 2 to 4 pick it up. But yeah, I just don't think that this one had any impact on me.
All right, so you don't recommend it then?
No, I definitely wouldn't recommend this one. But we'll see, I guess, what happens with the other parts.
You got that right. Bex Luthor, I take it you don't recommend this one.
No, I've been reading comic books since I could read, right? And so when the characters that you like get killed off, which happens because it's comic books, you have to kind of be like, oh, a character that I loved is now dead. Like, that's rough, but you keep going. But I don't know how many times, as just a woman, I've had to read characters that I love just get unceremoniously fridged for no reason. And it just kind of, it grates on you a lot. Where you go, oh, okay, so she just exists to be killed, and then 9 years doesn't matter, and Peter has no reaction, and it's just kind of a little heartbreaking. It feels almost like a betrayal sometimes, where it's like, oh, so this character that we've spent the last 9 years with doesn't matter to anybody but me? That seems weird. Yeah, don't read this one, and I honestly, again, if I didn't like you so much, Mike, I wouldn't be reading the rest of them. There'd be no way.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'd be tapping out of Peter Parker for probably ever.
All right.
The cover shows Peter reacting to her death more than the actual issue.
I think he's reacting to like the goons punching what's his face.
No, he says someone has killed a woman who meant a lot to me. It's like, you didn't say that
Just
in the
a
comic.
woman.
You didn't say that.
You said, "Oh crud!"
Oh,
But you know what? But that,
Oh, beans.
I mean, that's just. It's definitely bad writing, but part of it makes me feel like, okay, it's 1985. And what else is going on in comics? And there was kind of a distinct difference between all of them. Like, the Fire Lord story was like a little bit more fun and light, and the Nightmare story was just kind of this out of this world kind of thing. It seems like they had their own kind of pace and style, and they were trying to feed into like. This one that we read kind of seems like it's trying to be darker than Spider-Man maybe like needs to be, but like maybe needed to be for the time because they needed older readers, and they're trying to like it feels like almost like a Batman story in a way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, yeah, I think when I was a kid, I was really impressed by how realistic they were trying to make Spider-Man, but now looking back, I think they were trying too hard to make the book more violent and more realistic. And unfortunately, now almost everything's like that, right?
I was pretty excited to see her as a character show up because I was like, oh, cool, there's continuity through all these books. I was like, wonder how they carry a story with 4 or 5 different Spider-Man titles all happening at the same time and just like connect them all. And I was excited to see her show up at the beginning. I was like, oh, awesome. Like, it's the police captain from the other issue. And and then of course she's axed. So it was a little disappointing to be like, and more disappointing now to find out that she is like a long time character. But I guess maybe it'll be made more meaningful by what comes after it. But that shot and the couple panels about taking photos of that girl were super creepy, mixed with the oh crud. I think it's just so you're telling me the writer of this one wrote several of the other issues that we
he
read?
wrote all of them except Firelord. He wrote the Dream one and the Ace one.
You know what? That makes sense to me. Like, this guy's overworked if he's wasting panels like that because I like the Firelord one the best if I had to think about all of them. It was really the most fun, the most Spider-Man to me. It felt like Spider-Man.
That's definitely like the classic, it's kind of a throwback to the 60s, definitely. The Amazing Spider-Man. Like Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz for sure. But anyway, so we ended on a down note. But we want to thank Murad for joining us this week. Thank you, Murad. Hopefully we'll have you back on again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved reading these books. It was
awesome.
It was an experience, even if some of them were better than others, in my opinion. It was just like, it was like kind of like a weird look into comic books that maybe I should delve more into some of this older stuff. But maybe I won't either. I don't know. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, isn't it? Like, how do you know where to begin? I guess at number 1, like I did with everything else.
You could, yep. You can't go wrong with Spidey. Well, maybe you can, but anyway.
Well,
have you been paying attention?
you can definitely go wrong. Like I said, I enjoyed all of the books. They had aspects of them that some of the artwork in this book is not terrible. You know, I guess we didn't talk about that with this issue. The artwork is not bad, and there are some good aspects to it, but some not good aspects, and you can tell when a writer is overworked when they are writing 3 Spider-Man books at the same time. And this one, I feel, is like the title, and you tell me as somebody who's reading all of them, is this the darker of the Spider-Man titles at this point?
Absolutely, yeah. Peter Parker is, yep.
And then the other one, like Amazing, is meant to be the lighter, more accessible, fun one.
Yes. And then Web, no one knows what to do with Web. So.
Right, yeah, because
they just know Spider-Man's popular enough to carry another title, so they're gonna put Spider-Man on the cover of another book.
Yeah, what is going on with Web? They're like, the first couple books are like the Vulturions, and then the Vulture shows up, and then they're like, Kingpin's in there too, I guess, and then, we ran out of ideas, let's do a filler episode, crap. It's like, what?
Pretty rough.
We just got here.
And they've already had two regular writers, and I think Danny Fingeroth is already gone. He's already been replaced, so I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And there's definitely a reason why this one didn't last too long. Like, there's only, 100 or so issues?
129.
Which is still, well, I mean, to be fair, that's a long time.
Yeah, that's 2 years, but when you're comparing it to something like Amazing or Spectacular that's been around for quite some time, like there's definitely a reason why those ones stuck around and this one didn't, right? Because there's probably not like a specific story or theme or tone that they're going for with Web. It really just feels like this doesn't feel like an Amazing or a Spectacular, so let's shove it in Web.
Right.
They figure Web out, I'm pretty sure.
Do they?
But we're just not there yet.
Okay.
They do it, by issue 38, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I don't think I've read like a
by
lot
issue
of it.
38. It takes a while, 38 issues, just a few years from now.
Yeah, just read this for just 8-9 months, and then you'll be hooked.
All right, well, again, thank you, Mariah, for joining us. Please be sure to tune in next week when we are reviewing another episode of the Spider-Man cartoon. And it's the Hobgoblin.
Really?
Yes! It's the Hobgoblin two-parter. So I'll be sending you the links for those. And we'll be welcoming a guest that I met through the Flea Market Fantasy podcast. Bob Myers will be joining us. Nicknamed Pork Carrot, but just don't call him that on the air.
Okay.
Anyway, you can take
I'm excited
You can't tell me what to do.
I'm excited for that good Mark Hamill Hobgoblin.
There you go. Yep.
Wait, we're doing like the good Spider-Man?
You mean
I assume.
You mean the 80s one? Sorry, no, we're doing the 90s one, Becca.
Yeah, that's what she means.
Ew, shut up.
That's what she
Obviously,
means.
I meant the 90s one. I already watched those episodes. I'll just rewatch them.
There you go.
I've been binging that.
Sweet.
Oh, so
okay,
good.
Josh, you can take it from
Ew.
here.
Yeah, we want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, or you can drop us a line on Twitter at HCTSpidercast. Please let us know what you guys think about the issues we're talking about and the podcast itself. We definitely want to keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until next Monday, Spider Friends, go for it.